Hello student. In the second part of the video of chapter atomic structure, first I discuss the Bohr's atomic model. Look, Bohr's atomic model is based on the quantization of the energy. It is given by the scientist Niels Bohr. We have some assumption in this one. Okay, in order to explain the spectrum of the hydrogen-like substance, scientist Niels Bohr developed this model. We have certain assumptions like this model is valid for the single electron system like hydrogen atom, He plus ion, lithium plus 2 ion. For the single electron system we can apply the Bohr's atomic model. According to this model, electron is revolving around the nucleus in a well-defined circular path. This circular path has the fixed radius and fixed energy, and these circular paths are called the orbit or the shell. When electron move in these circular path, it neither release the energy nor it absorb the energy. Its energy in the orbit always remains the constant. Okay, look, second point, electron move around the nucleus in the circular path of the fixed radius and energy called the orbit or the shell. Energy of the electron in the orbit remains the constant. Whenever the electron move in these circular shell, energy of the electron always remains the constant. There are large number of the shell around the nucleus. Whenever electron move from the lower energy shell even to the higher energy shell, it always absorb the energy. When electron absorb the energy, at this time we can detect the absorption spectrum. But whenever the electron coming back from the higher shell E2 to the E1, then it emit the same amount of the energy, and this time we can detect the emission spectrum. So what is the energy difference between two energy shell? That can be given by the h nu is equal to E2 minus E1. This h nu is the exactly photon which is required for the excitation of the electron from the lower shell to the higher shell, or de-excitation of the electron from the higher shell to the lower shell. Then possible orbital. Okay, which circular path is possible? Then for this they have given one assumption. They said those circular shells are possible, those circular paths are possible, those orbits are possible for which the angular momentum of the electron MVR is in the integral multiplication of the n time of the h upon 2 pi. Okay, angular momentum MVR, it is equal to n times of h upon 2 pi, where n is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each value of the n represent the shell. If n is equal to 1, we are talking about the first shell. If n is equal to 2, we are talking about the second shell, and so on. When electron move in this circular path around the nucleus, then nucleus attract the electron in the inside direction, that is the Coulombic forces. But this circular motion also create one centrifugal force which work in the outside direction. If these two forces are the balance, then neither electron move toward the outside and neither electron move toward the inside, means it remains attached to the same shell. Okay, so for a stable system we have the condition Newtonian force, that is a centrifugal force, must be equal to the Coulombic force, and we know Coulombic force is the Z E square. Okay, Z is the number of the proton and E is the charge. So what is the total charge on the nucleus? Z into E, and we have a single electron system, and single electron system has only one E charge. So Q1 by Q1 into Q2, charge of the nucleus is the Ze, charge of the electron become the E, so that is the Ze square divided by 4 pi epsilon naught R square is equal to mv square upon R, that is the centrifugal force. When we solve these values, when we solve these values, first we have the formula of the radius. Radius of any shell is equal to 0.529 n square by z angstrom. If n is equal to 1 and z is equal to 1 for the hydrogen, then radius of the hydrogen for the first shell simply become the 0.529 angstrom. By the putting the value of the other z and n, we can find out the radius of the different shells. What is the velocity? Velocity has the formula 2.18 into 10 to the power 6 z by n meter per second. If z is equal to 1 for the hydrogen and we are talking about the first shell, then this 2.18 into 10 to the power 6 or 10 to the power minus 8 centimeter per second, that become the velocity of the electron in the first shell. And always the total energy of the electron is always potential energy divided by 2. If we divide the total potential energy by the 2, that become the total energy. And total energy of the electron and kinetic energy of the electron always proportional, always equal to each other, but they are in the opposite sign. Total energy is the negative and kinetic energy is always positive. Energy formula, we have energy of the electron in the nth shell is always minus 13.6 z square upon n square electron volt. If z is equal to 1 for the hydrogen and n is equal to first shell, then energy of the electron in the first shell of the hydrogen becomes a 13.6 electron volt. When electron moving from one shell to the another shell, it always absorbs a photon of a particular energy. It neither absorbs the less energy, neither it absorbs the photon of the more energy. It exactly required a photon of the particular energy. That energy of that photon can be given by the delta E is equal to hc upon lambda is equal to z square 13.6 z square 1 upon ni square minus 1 upon nf square. If we calculate from here, wave number nu bar is equal to 1 upon lambda, then we have a new formula, that is the RH z square 1 upon ni square minus 1 upon ns square. This RH is called the Rydberg constant, and value of the Rydberg constant is the 109678 centimeter inverse. This formula provide the wave number of the photon or wavelength of the photon which is exactly required to send the electron from the Ni to the NF. So when electron coming from any higher shell to the lower shell, we have the several transition, and every transition, for every transition we have a particular line in the spectrum. So with the help of these one, we can explain the hydrogen spectrum. In the hydrogen spectrum, we have the several lines, several series. Let's see what are those. First series is called the Lyman series. Whenever electron coming from the higher shell to the lower shell, any higher shell to the n is equal to 1, then it is called the Lyman series, and energy of the Lyman series is in the ultraviolet region. Next we have the Volmer series. Whenever electron coming from the higher shell, any higher shell 3, 4, 5 up to the infinity to the n is equal to 2, then that series is called the Balmer series, and light is present in the visual range. When electron coming to the third shell, that is the Paschen series from any other higher series, then that series is present in the infrared range, and that is called the Paschen series. If electron coming to the fourth shell from any higher shell, then that series is called the bracket series, and energy is again in the range of the infrared. When electron coming to the fifth shell from any higher shell, then that series is called the P-Fund series, and energy is again the infrared range. If electron coming back to the n is equal to 6 from any higher series, that may be the 7, 8 up to the infinity, then that series is called the Humphrey series, and again energy is in the range of the infrared. Okay, these we have to remember. Now first line of every series is called the alpha. Like alpha line of the Lyman series. Alpha line of the Lyman series is when electron coming from the 2 to 1. Alpha line of the Paschen series. Alpha line of the Paschen series is the line when electron coming from the 4 to 3. Beta line represent the second line. What is the beta line of the Pfund series? Alpha line is the first line. First line means when 6 to 5. Second line is the beta when electron transition occurs from the 7 to 5. And last line of every series is called the limiting line or infinity line. It is a line when electron coming from the infinity direct to that particular shell. So last line of every series is called the limiting line or the infinity. When electron coming from any higher shell to the ground state. Whenever electron coming from the higher shell to the ground state, we have the formula n into n minus 1 divided by 2. Okay, this is the formula when electron coming from the any higher shell to the lower shell. Suppose electron coming from the 3 to 1, then how we can use this formula? 3 into 3 minus 1, 2, 2 into 3. Okay, that is the 6 by 2, 3 lines we have. But whenever electron transition occurs from the n1 to the n2, from any particular initial line to the any other particular initial cell. Okay, from a particular shell n1 to another particular shell n2. Then how many number of lines we have in the emission spectrum? That is given by the n2 minus n1 plus 1 multiplied by n2 minus n1 divided by 2. By this formula we can calculate how many number of lines we have in the emission spectrum. Now, limitations of the Bohr model. Bohr model is only applicable for the single electron system like hydrogen, helium positive, lithium plus 2. We cannot apply the concept of the Bohr model for the multi-electron system like the helium, lithium, etc. It successfully explains the spectrum of a single electron system, but it cannot explain the spectrum of the multi-electron system. So this is the first limitation of the Bohr model, that it is only applicable for a single electron system. Now the next one, you see, it cannot explain the fine spectrum. Okay, the line which we have in the Bohr's model, those are called the main lines or main spectrum. But whenever we observe these lines under the HRS, high resolution spectrometer, then we find that it is not a single line, it is a collection of some fine lines. When we observe these fine lines together, they give the appearance of a single line. So whenever we observe the main line under the HRS, it's further split into the several parts, and that is called the fine spectrum. So Bohr model cannot explain the existence of the fine spectrum, how the fine spectrum is generated from the main spectrum. Further limitation, it cannot explain the Zeeman effect and the Stark effect. When we apply the magnetic field on the main spectrum, or when we apply the electrical field on the main spectrum, lines of the main spectrum and the lines of the main spectrum further divided into the several parts, and this is called the Zeeman effect and the Stark effect. When splitting of the line occurs in presence of magnetic effect, that is called the Zeeman effect. But whenever the splitting of the lines occurs in case of the electrical field, that is called the Stark effect. Next one is the de Broglie dual nature principle. In the Bohr's model, electron is only assumed as a particle. But after some time, the scientist de Broglie proved that every moving particle must have some wave associated with itself, must have some wave character. But in this model, we only consider the electron as a particle. But de Broglie proved that every moving particle has some wave character. So this model cannot explain the wave character of the electron. It cannot match with the de Broglie principle. The next one is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. According to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it is impossible to calculate the momentum and the position of any subatomic particle simultaneously and accurately. There are always some uncertainty associated with the calculations. But Bohr's atomic model gives the exact formula of the velocity. If we know the velocity, we multiply it by the mass of the electron, we will have the exact momentum. And Bohr's atomic model also gives the exact formula of the radius. Radius is the location position of the electron from the nucleus. So Bohr's atomic model can exactly calculate the radius, that is the position of the electron, and momentum with the help of the velocity of the electron. But Heisenberg proved that it is impossible to calculate both momentum and the position of the electron simultaneously and accurately. So these are the main limitations of the Bohr's atomic model. Now we discuss some questions. Like in the question number 9, the difference in the angular momentum associated with the electron in two successive orbits of the hydrogen atom. We have to find out what is the difference we have in the angular momentum of the electron. Suppose electron is present in the NH shell. When electron is present in the NH shell, its angular momentum, suppose electron present in the first shell, when n is equal to 1, the angular momentum of the electron is the, we know nh upon 2 pi, so it is h upon 2 pi. And suppose when electron is present in the second shell, then its angular momentum become the 2h upon 2 pi. And what we have to find out? We have to find out the difference in the angular momentum for the two successive orbits. So what we can do? Angular moment of the second shell divided by angular momentum of the first shell, that is the h upon 2 pi. Then h upon 2 pi can be taken as constant. What is remain? 2 minus 1. So what is that? H upon 2 pi. So difference of the angular momentum between two successive orbits is the h upon 2 pi. Answer is the 1. The next question number 10, energy of electron in the of hydrogen atom is the minus x. Energy of the electron in the third shell of the He plus, we have to find out. Then we have the formula, energy is equal to E0 minus E0 z square upon n square. E0 is the energy of the hydrogen atom in the first shell, that is given as x, minus x z square for the helium. We have the z value 2, so 2 square, and n is the number of shell is the 3 square. So what we have? We have minus 4x divided by 9. Correct answer of this question is the option number 3. Then question number 11, when 9.2 electron energy is supplied to the H atom, means when the 9.2 electron volt energy is supplied to the one of the electron of the H atom, electron jump to, okay, look, in the first shell energy of the electron is minus 13.6, and how much energy it absorbs? It absorbs the energy which is 9.2. So what is the energy of the electron now we have? Now the energy of the electron is the minus 3.4. Electron of the hydrogen atom is present in a shell where the energy is the minus 3.4. Then we know energy formula is the En is equal to E0 z square upon n square, and we also have the negative sign here. So what is the energy of the electron in that shell? Minus 3 by 4 is equal to minus 13.6. For the hydrogen atom, z value is the 1 divided by n square. What we have? Minus minus cancel out. 3.4 divided by 13.6, that become the 1 by 4. 1 by 4 is equal to n square. So n value is the second, means electron is present in the second shell. So correct answer of this question is the option number 1. Now, in which of the following transition maximum energy is emitted? It is very easy question. N is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, n is equal to 4, and n is equal to 5. Whenever we have a transition from the highest shell to the minimum shell, then we always release the energy in the maximum range. Okay, energy when electron coming from the 5 to 1 is maximum, after that 4 to 1, after that 3 to 1, and after that 2 to 1. So maximum energy transition occurs in case when electron make a transition from the n is equal to 5 to the n is equal to 1. So correct answer of this question is the option number 4. Now question number 13. In a hydrogen atom, if energy of the electron in the ground state is the 13.6, then energy in the second excited state is in the electron volt. Look, for ground state is the first state. First excited state, when electron present in the n is equal to 2, it is called the first excited state. When we excite more, when now electron come in the n is equal to 3, and n is equal to 3 is called the second excited state. Third excited state is the n is equal to 4. Fourth excited state is the n is equal to 5. So electron present in the second excited state. Second excited state means electron now present in the third shell. Now what the formula we have? E in the nth shell is equal to minus 13.6 z square upon n square. Then what we have? Minus 13.6. It is the hydrogen atom. So value of the z is equal to 1 divided by electron is present in the 3 square. So what we have? Minus 13.6 divided by 9. What is that? It is the minus 1.51. So what is the magnitude of the energy? The magnitude of the energy is the minus 1.51 electron volt. So correct answer of this question is the option number 1. Now in the question number 14, it is given that which of the following transition will have minimum wavelength? Look, we know that energy is equal to h nu, that can be written as hc upon lambda. So energy and wavelength of any transition is always inversely proportional to each other. The transition which have the maximum energy release, for that transition the wavelength has to be the minimum. Then maximum energy release, look, 4 to 2 release the energy in the visual range, it is the Balmer series. But 4 to 1, 4 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, these release the energy in the ultraviolet region, which is maximum. And maximum energy release when the electron from the highest shell is coming to the lowest shell, and that is the option number 4. So option number 1. So in the option number 1, when electron make the transition from the 4 to 1, maximum amount of energy is released. If energy is the maximum, then wavelength has to be the minimum. So answer of the question number 14 is the option number 1. Then question number 15, the energy required to excite the electron from the first orbit to the second orbit in terms of the ionization energy. Look, ionization energy is the energy when electron from its original state sent to the infinity. Okay, and electron become free from the force of attraction of the nucleus, and this electron is called the free electron. Energy of the free electron is always equal to 0. In a hydrogen atom, in the first shell, the energy of electron is the minus 13.6 electron volt. If we supply the exactly 13.6 electron volt energy, then original energy of the electron minus 13.6, it absorbs plus 13.6, and at that time its energy become the zero and it become free from the force of attraction of the nucleus, that is called the free electron, and this energy is called the ionization energy. Means 13.6 is the ionization energy, 13.6 electron volt is the ionization energy of the hydrogen. So what the formula we have? We have energy. Here we have the 13.6, but in place of 13.6 what we can write? We can write ionization energy 1 upon Ni square minus 1 upon N2 square. Ionization energy, since it is the hydrogen atom, it is not given, but this question is framed for the hydrogen atom. If hydrogen atom is there, then Z square is always equal to 1, and electron initially present in the first shell and we have to transfer it into the second shell. So what we have? Now we have energy required is the ionization energy 1 minus 1 by 4, that is the 3 by 4 times of the ionization energy. Means energy required to send the electron from the 1 to 2 is always 3 by 4 times of its ionization energy. Then question number 16, which of the following is a limitation of the Bohr's atomic model? First option, it can explain the fine spectrum. It is not the limitation. Limitation is what? It cannot explain the fine spectrum. So this is not the limitation. Second, it consider the wave nature of the electron. No, in the Bohr atomic model we consider only the particle nature of the electron. It is not the limitation. Then third, it is only valid for the single electron system. It is one of the limitation of the Bohr's atomic model, that Bohr's atomic model is only applicable for a single electron system. For the hydrogen, helium, beryllium like atom we cannot apply this Bohr's atomic model. Then last one, it can explain the Zeeman effect. Look, it is also wrong. Why? Because Bohr's atomic model cannot explain the Zeeman effect and Stark effect, and it is one of the limitations of the Bohr atomic model. Then after that we have now de Broglie equation, de Broglie dual nature principle. This dual nature principle said that every moving object has some wave character associated with it. Means it has some wavelength, and that is called the duality principle, dual nature principle. According to this, every moving object must have some wave character. Equation for this one is the lambda is equal to h upon mb. Lambda is the wavelength with the motion of the particle, h is the Planck's constant, and m is the mass of the object, and v is the velocity. Okay, according to this, the lambda represent the wave character and m represent the mass character or particle character, and wave character and particle character are always inversely proportional to each other. Mass of electron is very less, it is negligible. If mass is very less, then particle character if mass is very less, particle character is very less, then in such case wave character has to be the maximum. Wave character has to be the very high, but in the Bohr model, Bohr completely ignored this wave character of the electron. Okay, now one of the assumption of the Bohr model is the angular momentum. mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. That assumption proved by the de Broglie. According to the de Broglie, only those shells are possible for which the circumference of the shell or orbit is in the integral multiple of the wavelength of the electron. What is that? Circumference of the orbit must be equal to an integral multiple of wavelength of the electron. What the thing we have? 2 pi r. 2 pi r is equal to n lambda. 2 pi r is equal to n lambda. Here r is the radius of the orbit in which the electron is present, and lambda is the wavelength of the electron. According to that, if we have the first shell, in the first shell we form the one wave, and in such case the 2 pi r circumference of the first shell is equal to 1 time of the lambda. For the second shell, we have the two waves of the electron, like here, one wave from this point to this point, second wave from this point to this point. Means in the second orbit we have the two waves. So what is the condition? 2 pi r circumference of the second shell is equal to 2 times of the lambda. Similarly, in the third shell we have the three waves of the electron, and in such case 2 pi r3 is equal to 3 times of the lambda. After the de Broglie principle, now we have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. According to this principle, whenever we have a subatomic particle, it also have the wave character, it also have the particle character, then what is the condition? It is impossible to calculate the momentum and the exact position of any subatomic particle like electron simultaneously and accurately. Always some uncertainty associated with the calculations. Look, it is impossible to determine the simultaneously the exact position and exact momentum or velocity of the electron or any subatomic particle. We always have some uncertainty associated with the calculation. If delta x represent the uncertainty associated with the position and delta p represent the uncertainty associated with the momentum, then multiplication of the uncertainty of the position and multiplication of the uncertainty of the product is always greater or equal to the h upon 4 pi. If we explain the same equation in terms of velocity, what is that? Multiplication of the uncertainty of the position and uncertainty of the velocity always greater or equal to h upon 4 pi, and this h is constant, 4 is constant, pi is constant. For a given particle like electron, this m is also constant. In such case, what happens? In such case, uncertainty associated with the location is inversely proportional to the uncertainty associated with the velocity. Means if uncertainty in the position is maximum, then uncertainty in the velocity is the minimum. Means now in the question number 17, the wavelength of a particle of mass 11.043 into 10 is power minus 26 kg moving with the velocity 6.0 into 10 is power 7 meter per second is, okay, velocity is given in the meter per second and we have to find out the wavelength in the meter. So we know that de Broglie wavelength is the lambda is equal to h upon mv. Here h value we know, Planck's constant 6.626 into 10 is power minus 34 divided by m. M is given as 11.043 into 10 is power minus 26 kg. Velocity 6 into 10 is power 7. Okay, if we solve, this is approximately 1 point something, and when we solve this one, okay, it exactly come as the 0.1. These three calculation exactly come as the 0.1 multiplied by 10 is power minus 34 multiplied by 10 is power minus 26 plus 26 multiplied by 10 is power minus 7. So what we have? Now we have 0.1 into 10 is power minus 34 and minus 7. 10 is power minus 41 into multiplied by 10 is power 26. So what is that? It becomes the 0.1 into 10 is power minus 15. Okay, that can be written as 1 into 10 to the power minus 16. So correct answer of this question is the option number 2. Then the next question number 18, the propagation of the electronic wave in the n shell of the hydrogen atom is shown by, look, k shell, L, M and N. K shell is the first shell, second shell is the L, third shell is the M and fourth shell is the N. Okay, so we have to check for the fourth shell, that is the N shell. In the first shell we have only one wave, in the second shell we have the two wave, in the third shell we have the three wave, but in the fourth shell we always have the four wave. Look, from this point to this point 1 lambda, from this point to this point second lambda, from this point to here third lambda, and finally it becomes the 4 lambda. So correct answer of this question number 18 is the option number 4. In this one we have the 4 wavelength. Now question number 19, the wavelength of the electron in the first orbit of the hydrogen atom is the lambda. Then circumference of the fifth shell. Okay, look, they have given that first shell wavelength is the lambda. Okay, so 2 pi r n is equal to n lambda. This is the formula which we have in the de Broglie. So what we have, 2 pi r1 is equal to lambda. Okay, so r1 become lambda upon 2 pi. This is the value of the r1. Then r5, radius of the fifth orbital, what is that? r1 n square by z. So r1 is the lambda upon 25, 2 pi, lambda divided by 2 pi. Value of the n, fifth shell 5 square, and hydrogen atom z value is the 1. So what is that? 25 lambda upon 2 pi. Okay, and we have to find now circumference. This is the radius of the fifth shell. This is the radius of the fifth shell. Now 2 pi r5, this we have to find out. This is the circumference of the fifth shell. So what is that? 2 pi r5, r5 is the 25 into lambda divided by 2 pi. 2 pi cancel out. What is the answer we have? 25 lambda. Okay, so correct answer of this question is the 25 lambda. That is the option number 1. Now the next question, 100 gram metal ball move with the 100 meter per second velocity. If the uncertainty in the velocity is the 0.01, calculate the delta x, calculate the uncertainty associated with the position. So what we have? We have delta v into delta x is equal to h upon 4 pi m. Okay, or delta x is equal to h upon 4 pi m into delta v. What is the delta v? Velocity is the 100 and uncertainty is the 0.01% of the velocity. So what is that? 100 cancel out. So uncertainty in the velocity is the 0.01. Okay, now delta x is the h, 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by 4 into pi into m. M is given as 100 gram, but we have to find out in the kg because we are using the MKS unit now, divided by delta v. Delta v is the 0.1. Okay, this quantity when we solve, when we solve these all quantity, this will come as 527 into 10 to the power minus 34. Okay, that can be written as 5.3 into 10 to the power minus 32 meter. So correct answer of this question is the option number 1. Now failures of the Bohr's model, dual nature given by the de Broglie, and uncertainty principle of the Heisenberg is finally combined by the scientist Erwin Schrödinger in a form of the single equation, and this equation is called the Schrödinger wave equation. In the Schrödinger wave equation, it is the equation which is based on the dual nature of the electron. Again, it is only applicable for the single electron system like hydrogen atom, helium plus ion, etc. Okay, in this one, electron is bonded to the nucleus. We assume that electron is bonded to the nucleus, and that can be considered as a standing wave with the amplitude lambda, amplitude psi, and wavelength lambda. And this Schrödinger wave equation, the del square psi divided by del x square plus del square psi divided by del y square plus del square psi divided by del z square plus 8 pi square m e minus v divided by h square psi is equal to 0. Here E is the total energy, V is the potential energy. So total energy minus potential energy will provide you the kinetic energy. M is the mass of electron, M is the mass of electron, psi is the wave amplitude of the electron wave function. So you see first part provides us the information regarding the location of the electron in the x and y or z axis. Means this first part provide the location of the electron, it is the function of location of the electron. And second part, total energy minus potential energy will provide the kinetic energy. So this part provide the function of the kinetic energy. Okay, so at the same time we have the location of the electron, at the same time we have the kinetic energy of the electron. If we know the kinetic energy, we can know the velocity and momentum. Psi represent the wave function of the electron. This is the equation which also represent the wave function. Psi is the amplitude of the electron wave function. So psi represent the electron wave function, and m represent the particle nature of the electron because it is the mass of electron. Mass of electron represent the particle nature. When this equation is solved, it provides a very large number of the solution, but every solution is not accepted. Only few solutions are accepted. Those are fulfilled the conditions, boundary condition. Those accepted solution of the psi are called the eigenfunction, and these accepted solution are characterized by the a set of the quantum number. 3 quantum number we have by the Schrödinger wave equation: principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, and magnetic quantum number. Then which value of the psi is accepted and which value is the rejected? That is, the acceptable value of the psi must be, it should be finite, psi should be finite, psi should be continuous, it should be a continuous function, and it should be a single valued function. And last condition, the probability of the finding electron in all over the space, that may be the from the minus infinity to the plus infinity, has to be equal to the 1. Means electron has to be present in this universe from the minus infinity to the plus infinity. That is the limit from the minus infinity to plus infinity. If we differentiate, if we integrate the psi square with respect to dx, dy and dz, then this value has to be equal to the 1. Okay, psi represent the amplitude of the electron wave function, but square of the amplitude always provide the intensity. So psi square provide the intensity of the electron wave function, that is the probability of the finding electron in the 3D space at any given time. So psi square represent the probability of the finding electron in the 3D space, and this 3D space is called the orbitals. Look, psi is the amplitude, that can be the positive and negative, but psi square is always has to be the positive. Then orbital is the 3D space, 3D region in the space where the probability of the finding electron is maximum. It is from 90 to 95%. Now we see this question 21. Which of the following quantum number is not obtained from the wave equation? It is very easy. 3 quantum number is obtained from the wave equation, that is the n, l and m. Spin quantum number is not obtained by the Schrodinger wave equation. It is a result of the Pauli's exclusion principle. So correct answer of this question number 21 is the option number 4. Spin quantum number is not obtained by the Schrodinger wave equation. Then question number 22. In any transition of the electron emitted red light for a hydrogen atom, which of the following transition fulfills such condition? Look, red light of the hydrogen atom means this light must be the visible in nature. Okay, Lyman series always release the ultraviolet energy. We cannot see it, our eyes cannot detect the ultraviolet light. And remaining third onward, Paschen series onward, all the series they release the energy in the infrared series. Our eyes cannot detect the infrared also. Only Balmer series is present in the visual range. So when they say that red light means it is the transition that must belong to the Balmer series, and electron has to be come from any higher shell to the n is equal to 2. So option number 1, release the energy in the ultraviolet region. Option number 2, 5 to 4, release the energy in the infrared range. Option number 3, again release the energy in the infrared. Only 3 to 2 is the transition which is belongs to the Balmer series, and only in the Balmer series visual light is released. So correct answer of this question is the option number 4. Now, how many lines are possible in the emission spectrum when electrons from the fourth shell return to the first shell without any line of the Paschen series? Means electron is initially in the fourth shell, then after fourth shell we have the third, then second, then first. Okay, these are the possible conditions are there. 4 orbitals are there, but they said electron is not coming in the Paschen series. Means electron always coming from the 4 to directly either 2 or 1. It cannot come in the third shell, because if electron coming in the third shell, then it will give the Paschen series. So electron initially present in the fourth shell. So what are the possibility? How many lines are possible? Either electron come from the 4 to 2 or 4 to direct 1. And what is the next possibility? The electron which is present in the 2, it come from the 4 to 2, then 4 to 1. So how many lines are possible? Only 3 lines are possible in this emission spectrum. That's all from my side in this video number 2. Thank you.